This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social, and I'm delighted to be joined by light heavyweight contender Hosea Burton. Hosea, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Good.
It's good to hear. Obviously, there's a lot which has gone on recently in and amongst your division, but before we come on to that, what are your plans? What have you got lined up for yourself now for the coming months?
Well, there's nothing set in stone at the moment, but obviously the Spider Richards fight with him impressively knocking out Jake Paul the other day. Eddie said something about that on Sky Sports, so I'd like that fight to happen.
What did you make of the Spider Richards and Jake Paul fight?
Spider looked really good, Jake looked really bad. Now, I don't think this is taking nothing away from Jake or taking nothing away from Spider. I just think Jake had an off day. That wasn't... You've seen Jake Paul fight before. Jake Paul's never fought like that before. As well as Spider Richards has never fought like that before. He looked a devastating puncher, but then you will look a good puncher with someone who's not really committing and throwing back. I just don't think that was a good Jake Paul.
Whenever I speak to people, and whenever I look on social media, the light heavyweights in the country that always get brought up are either yourself, Frank Buglioni before he retired, Anthony Yarde and Josh Buatsi. You know, Craig's name never really used to come up, or neither did Jake's. Would you put Craig in amongst yourselves and the others that I've just mentioned, and that he should get more credit, especially on the back of that victory over Jake Paul? Look,
Craig's just put himself in that bracket, you know, with that win. But everyone's forgetting about a couple of fights ago, we got outboxed every round off of Frank Buglioni. Now, I know he took it on short notice, but if he didn't think he could win it, he wouldn't have took it. You know, you wouldn't risk your unbeaten record for nothing, for a few £1,000. So, he's put himself in the mix, but people try to keep my name out of that mix. If you've noticed, in the last 2 years, since I got beat up for Frank, I've been the avoided man of the division. When people talk about light heavyweights, they try to forget about my name. Don't mention my name in interviews, blah, blah, blah. Like, just keep them away. Because at the minute, I've got no titles to take off. No one can take a title off me because I've got no titles. But it's very, very hard to take a title from me. You know, it's very hard to beat me. So with this fight with me and Rich is going to be for the Commonwealth, and his belt, is it the WBO Continental? Something like that. It's a Continental belt anyway. Gives you top 15 in the world. That's a fight I would love to have. There's a belt on the line for us. Like, he's after straps, I'm after belts, you know, so it should happen. Eddie should make it happen. It's not hard to make happen. I say yes. I say yes to fights.
Now, another name which has come up with yourself is Anthony Yarde. I know you saw him out in America for the Wilder Fury Fight Week. Firstly, what was your take of the events out there? Because, you know, a couple of guys who work for Boxing Social have spoke to him, and he says that when he saw you, he actually didn't know what you looked like. He just knew your name. Did you believe that, or did you know that at the time?
Listen, he pretends he doesn't know who I am, like he's never heard my name before, Hosea Burton, and he goes, what, like, who's Hosea Burton kind of thing. Obviously he knows who I am because he's watched me fight before. He watched me lose against Frank Buglioni, which a fight, fair play to Frank, he got the decision. He never got the decision, he stopped me. But it was a fight I was well in control of until the last minute and a half of the last round. He knows who I am, he just chooses not to try to give me any sort of credit at all because he knows I'm his worst nightmare. You know, he couldn't look at me in the eye. When I pulled him, you seen what happened. Everyone else seen. I wasn't disrespectful. I'm not that disrespectful type of guy. I just stopped him and said, because he pretends he don't know me. So I stopped him and said, whatever I said, I'm Hosea Burton, in case you didn't know who I was. And he couldn't look me in the eye. Every time he'd look at me, look away, and he couldn't wait to move. And then as he was going, he shouted "Lions in the camp," as he was already jogging, basically. He knows who I am, and him and Frank, they've done a brilliant job of avoiding everybody in boxing.
What do you make of Anthony? I know next week he's fighting Travis Reeves. What do you make of that fight? And Anthony as a fighter himself, is he as good as what he started to build up his reputation for being a knockout merchant, or do you see it as because he hasn't fought anyone, at least at domestic level, we can't judge him yet?
He's not fought anybody at any level. If he's fought someone who's been half decent, they've been like 57-year-old. You know, they've been old. Or they've been fat journeymen. You know, they've probably done something at light middleweight and they've retired for a couple of years, come back at light heavyweight. He's not beat anybody he shouldn't have. You know, he's beat everybody he's been put in front of him. He should have won and should have won easily. He needs a proper fight because I think the public is starting to cop onto him that he's ducked everyone. And when people mention a decent fight that they want to see, he's not interested.
Another thing which always comes up with Anthony is the fact that he's number one with WBO. Do you think that's added more pressure to him and that maybe in itself he should be looking to challenge other opponents or maybe people who are better known amongst, to the very least, the British public?
I think the reason why he's number one in WBO is because Frank has paid a lot of money for that. He's avoided everyone. He should have a fight with someone who's either a decent British man or a decent anybody man. You know, it doesn't matter where they're from, as long as they're decent, and they should give him a fight, which he's not fought anybody of that standard. Fair play to him. He's got where he's got for a reason. Listen, he's beat everyone he's come against, but he's not pulled the wool over my eyes.
He fights Travis Reeves next week. What do you make of that fight? Do you know anything about Travis?
I know nothing about Travis Reeves, or Reeves, or whatever he's called. Know nothing about him. He's probably old. He's probably not in his own weight. You tell me a bit about Travis. Do you know out about him, or you ask anybody in Britain, do they know anything about Travis Reeves? They're all going to say no, because he's another one of them. He probably works in a kebab house or something. I don't know.
Obviously, prior to that, he was going to fight Hosea Burton, former European champion, and he did fight Vosdik. I know he lost, but he did fight someone who is considered one of the best in the division.
Why didn't he fight the lad who won then? You know that Hosea Burton, didn't he get beat?
Yeah.
Well, why didn't he fight the lad who won?
It's a question which I'll put back to him.
Was Eddie Amar on his way out? I don't know, because I don't know Eddie Amar either. Was he on the slide a little bit? Obviously he must have been, because he got beat. So if I was after that fight, I would have fought the man who beat him.
What about Callum Johnson? In terms, not for yourself, but I know his name has come up with Anthony. How do you think that fight would plan out?
Devastating knockout. Callum would hurt him. The thing is, right, when there's two good fighters involved, you got to look who was the better amateur. Now, this will win you money. If you go to the bookies and it's a close fight, just look in the background of the amateur pedigree and see who was the best amateur and bet on those. Now, Callum was a brilliant amateur. He won the Commonwealth Games. It shows. He fought for a world title the other day. He got hit with a sucker punch and dropped heavily. Got back up and went and put over Beterbiev. Maybe if he never got hit with that, I think it was an illegal punch. His head was through the ropes. Referee said break. And he fired in and caught Callum with a big shot. It really took most of the fight out of Callum. Callum wouldn't get hit with nothing like that off of Yarde. That's a fight I would like to watch. The public should want to watch that fight because that would be a brilliant fight. But I just think Callum's levels above.
And to move on from Callum and obviously Anthony, Josh Buatsi fights Liam Conroy for the British light heavyweight title. What do you make of that fight? What do you make of Josh's progression as a professional so far?
When Joshua first turned pro, I got asked the question, who do you think's the best Olympian? And I said Joshua Buatsi. You know, he's a talented boxer, he's a good puncher, he's a pretty rounded fighter. I like Liam Conroy. I think he's alright. He's a nice kid. I've known him through the amateur scene. My little brother's boxed both of them. It's just a fight, I think. There's levels again to it, and I just think Conroy's just a little bit out of his level. No disrespect to Liam Conroy, because I'd like to see him go on and do good.
And finally, next weekend, as well as seeing Yarde fight in Leicester, we have the Eubank DeGale fight. What are your thoughts on that one?
If DeGale's got anything at all left, DeGale will punch him through the ring. DeGale's levels again, amateur levels, no amateur levels. DeGale, if he's got anything at all, DeGale will make him look stupid.
But that's been billed as the retirement fight. Do you see it as a retirement fight for the loser? I know Eubank's only 27, 28, but is that how bad a loss could be for him as well?
if he gets beat off of an old DeGale, because DeGale's getting on now, he's been in the prime of his life for a long time. He's due for a slide, and the Badou Jack fight took a lot out of him. But it's a fight that James DeGale, he was one of them fighters when he first turned professional. I would watch and I think he's absolutely brilliant. I hope I don't have to come against someone like him, because he was really that good. He's been out for a while. Hopefully he's still chunky. Hopefully he's still James DeGale, and he wins that fight with ease.
Well, Hosea Burton, I appreciate your time. I know you're going to want to shoot off now. You've just finished your training session, so thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
No problem. Thank you for having me.